City Council named order invocation tonight by Alderman Leland.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come to this meeting, Lord, I just ask you to give us influence, direction, guidance, Lord, and let us make the right decisions. Be with everyone that's here. Let them go home safe, and be with everyone that is fighting for our freedoms, Lord. And there again, I thank you for all the things that's going on in our city. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Megan Bryan.
Here.
Larry Bud.
Here.
Sean Burdell.
Here.
Bernie
Here.
Dorchenez. Kathy Driscoll. Lee Landzadi.
Here.
Jim Olive.
Here.
Crystal Teddy.
Here.
All Aldermen are present except Alderman Driscoll. Motion to approve the Entler Excavating Company Incorporated for Ward 3 Vollentine's Addition Storm Sewer Project. Motion by Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Bryant. Discussion, comments?
Just one quick comment, just to clarify, so everybody's on board with our full information of this. Since it's $228,942.96, I believe Larry can correct me if I'm wrong, then $100,000 is going to come out of Ward 3 funds. $100,000 will come out of the Don Home Rule Excess Tax Fund, and then $28,942.96 will come out of Ward 2 funds.
Mr. Budd?
What we will have coming in will be some engineering costs associated with that, because imagine Joe will have somebody on site to be able to make sure they're putting it into the, whatever the flow line would be. I mean, he's done that in the past, have somebody on site, so there will be that expense. Marty did get a hold of me today, and Mike, and there was $11,000 or $12,000 payment for engineering fees. I told them to take that out of the Ward 1 utility money, and then whatever we run up to, the rest of it would come out of your non-home rule. But this way that we're paying the bills as they come in, because there's going to be some engineering costs here.
For Ward 1, you mean
For
Ward 3?
Ward 3.
Okay.
Okay, and there is the remaining, whatever that is,
Yeah. And again,
portion of Ward 2
Right.
funds that can be used up to
Up to
50,000. That's just
50,000 was the
yeah.
Ward 2 max.
Yeah, it's just
And if,
at this point.
right. And if there's any cost over the 250, it would go out of the.
well, $100,000 is automatically coming out of more
Right,
tax.
but anything over the 250, if there would be anything, would come out of the.
Yes,
non-home
that's
rule
correct,
excess.
yes.
Correct. Okay, roll call.
Larry Bud.
Yes.
Sean Burdell.
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll. I'm sorry. Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Crystal Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Discussion of the request of Craig Neighbours to extend the city's water main to his property, which property is now located outside but is contiguous to the city's corporate limits at an estimated $25,000 cost for materials, engineering, surveying, attorney, title insurance, easement, subordination, and/or consent agreement from lien holders, recording and publication fees and costs, and determination of the amount of such fees and costs to be paid by the owners of neighbors' property, and rather to require the property owners of the neighbor's property to sign an irrevocable annexation petition and have the property annexed into the city before commencing such water main extension, or in lieu thereof, require the property owner to sign an irrevocable annexation petition and annexation agreement subject to future annexation may be hereafter required by the city council as set forth under subparagraph A of City Code Section 8-4-11. Okay. Open the floor for discussion. Mr. Spiegel, would you like to
Yeah, sure. So,
get us up to date?
yeah, you know that. So, Mr. Neighbours came in, inquired about a water main extension, contacted his neighbors, some of them were interested, others aren't, some are interested, depending on annexation. There's a third party who was looking to participate, but as soon as the annexation discussion came up, they backed out. So, the original cost I sent was $10,500, like $12.71. That was all materials, $1,000 for engineering, and $2,000 for legal, which is a little soft in the numbers, but you know, gotta give them a number. And then we get a customer or two with the main running in front of other properties, and in the future we pick up some more customers. That's how you get them. You get the main in, and people tap on later. That's generally how it works. So, Rocky, the new deal he threw in was that it's now contiguous. I told Mr. Neighbours it wasn't, because it wasn't by what the rule we used before. The rule now, Rocky pulled up a statute where if the property between the contiguous and non-contiguous properties is less than 30 feet, the annexation jumps across. So that was new to me, didn't know that. He provided the statute, and I think Bill got a copy of that email. So we can see that. So that's right in the middle of stuff. So the other party that was interested, Ben Mormon, he's still interested at the original cost if annexation's in the works. If annexation's in the works, then he's not interested in going to the higher cost. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at right now.
So if I might sum up what I've learned, if we would absorb the cost, then I think at least Craig and Ben Mormon would be interested in the annexation. If they absorb the cost, or some of the cost, or most of the cost, then they would like some type of agreement where we would not annex their properties in. Again, if our goal is to get more water customers out in that area, would be not to annex these particular properties, because that would be a domino effect where if somebody else would want to get city water, then they would have to sign that irrevocable agreement to annex also. So that's why basically why we called this special meeting. It is time sensitive. Neighbors is building a house, and it's 4 to 6 weeks from moving into the house. He right now has no water, and he has not dug a well yet. So that's why I called this special meeting tonight. So Rocky, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear. If you want me to comment, I'll be happy to at any time.
Well, let's just wait and see what the aldermen, if they got any comments or questions, or do we turn it over to Rocky? Sean?
I got a couple comments, and they're probably directed towards Rocky. Rocky, I remember when Martin Boda and Greg Brotherton was still on the council, they kind of threw a fit. That's when Ernie Dorchnez was chairman of the water committee. They kind of threw a fit because the annexation portion of our city code was kind of automatic. You know, if you met certain criteria, you were automatically brought in. So they threw a fit, and I thought we changed that ordinance to determine that if the city found it to be unadvantageous to us, we didn't necessarily have to do it automatic. Is that the case, or am I thinking wrong?
No, you are thinking absolutely correct. Matter of fact, I gave everyone a copy of your code section 8-4-11. City Council adopted that back in July 2015. What it essentially says is that water cannot be furnished to any property which is contiguous to the city of Taylorville until and unless they annex in to the city. However, we changed that rule to say if the city council, in its sole discretion, decides at that particular time not to annex it in, you can still furnish the water without requiring the annexation at that time. However, the ordinance that you adopted says that if that's going to be the case, then the owners have to sign an annexation agreement that for the life of that annexation agreement, which is 20 years, or any renewal thereof, which our form provides for renewals, that the city council can change its mind, or any future city council can decide to annex them in, and it comes in. Legally, unless you do away with this whole ordinance and all your rules, you cannot enter into legally an agreement that says, the city council will never annex this property in. You can't do that. That would, so you gotta think about that.
So
That's one stumbling block that Mr. Neighbours and Mr. Mormon will probably have, but that's the law.
if we determined tonight we didn't.
Your entire ordinance that says you don't have to annex working with Ben and Associates and Jeff Robinson, Advanced Title, and talking with the county assessor. The estimated cost of this is gonna be about $25,000 for engineering, legal, surveying, title insurance, title work, which are gonna be going down Ridge Avenue, I understand. And there may be 12 different properties that you're gonna have to cross, maybe, we don't know yet, until they actually get the title work done, and how far into the yards they have to go. There's questions about whether or not where the existing septic systems for those properties are located. Ben Associates was concerned about that. So that $25,000 estimate does not include any cost that the mortgage companies who may have mortgages on these particular pieces of property would charge to get a subordination agreement to make sure that when you put your line in, that it will be paramount over any mortgage lien. So, I mean, it's a business decision for you guys. There is a way that you could say, okay, we won't annex you in now, but you can't bind that decision in unlimited time in the future without changing your ordinance.
Okay.
So
we
that
could,
answer your question, Sean?
yeah, so we could come to an agreement tonight that this city council tonight would not annex you in. We could still put the water main in, but we can't promise you anything in the future.
That's in a nutshell. They have to go through some hoops, they have to sign annexation agreement, annexation petition is irrevocable, but you guys can decide, well, when you do all that, we're not gonna annex you in now, but that's not to say it won't happen in the future. You cannot bargain that away.
And the reason I brought that up is,
What's happening here, what we found out, just so you know, is that there's a fellow, some property by the name of Jeffrey, owns some property that's shown by the tax assessor, and they sent us, and I passed on those maps to you, and I passed on, I think, that bill, that particular property is actually paying city taxes to the city of Taylorville. The tax assessor believes that property's in the city. Then I gave you the statute, and because it's only a 20-foot strip, you cannot annex that strip in, but you can jump that strip, and for purposes of the annexation, it is contiguous. Unfortunately, if that comes in, it does have a domino effect, because there's apparently, I'm told, I have not researched it, but that there's a lot of properties around there that have city water that then would become contiguous. Now, that they are I understand, they've executed annexation agreements, but I don't know how many years ago, or whether or not there's the old forms, because annexation agreements, without using your city new form, after 20 years, that's the maximum time frame. So we haven't researched that part of it yet. We kind of got stuck on this issue here. So.
and the reason I asked that question was because the new water plant is based on our current customers. And that includes inside customers and outside customers. And everybody knows you're outside the city limits, you pay double. So
Right.
by bringing people in that currently have water, would that bring anybody in, Dave, that has water now?
What do you mean, bring it
Like,
in?
with the annexation process?
Would it annex other property?
Yeah, that currently have water.
I don't know, 'cause I haven't checked. So they've had water for a lot of years. I don't know if it's been over 20 years or not.
Okay. You know, my thought is that we don't want to lose revenue because our loan is set up by the customer base we have now. So technically for the water department, maybe not for the city, but for the water department, it's better to have more outside customers. They make more revenue that way. So in my opinion, being the chairman of the water committee, it would be advantageous to us to have all these customers on water outside the city until there's a reason why we need to bring them in. That's just my opinion.
Just so you know too, Sean, is that even if you decide to annex it in now, again, assuming that the annexation agreement is still within that 20-year time period, it would be automatic. In other words, if they're still within that 20-year period, you just adopt if they did it right back 20 years ago, you just adopt the annexation ordinance and they're in, regardless, they're still your water customer. You wouldn't lose them as a water customer.
Well, I'm talking about double rates though.
You're comparing double rates versus
Yeah.
increase in real estate taxes for the valuation of the homes out there.
Well, I mean, currently I'm talking about the water plant. I know the real estate taxes is advantageous to the city as a whole, but I'm more worried about paying that mortgage out there. And the more outside customers, the more leeway we have to do things in the future.
Well,
And one of the things we
you
need to do in the
just
future is
wanna
gain
factor
water
whatever
customers.
you think you're gonna get in water revenue versus a $25,000 cost. It would take quite some time to recoup that. if you're talking about bearing the cost entirely.
So why don't we let Mr. Neighbors talk and see what he's willing to offer to the city? I know it originally set up, I think we were in agreement that you were gonna pay the 10,500 or whatever the figure Mr. Spiegel had given you. And
Yeah, I talked to every resident on the road, and everyone's told me they would sign an easement, and there was 4 to 5 houses that were interested in the water. If nobody did it, I was still interested in paying the 10.5 that he quoted me to get city water. That's roughly what I'm gonna have to pay for a well, and I'd rather have city water. I lived on Lakeside, which is one road past that, for the last 9 years and paid double rates water. And every resident on there, and my property is contiguous to those if we start jumping properties. And so that's 9 houses that I know have city water, and then that would be contiguous to Fairlane and then Roosevelt. And so my take on this is I will pay the 10.5 or 18 if Ben's splitting, you know, yeah, it's gonna be, if I'm throwing out 20 grand for this on my own, that's pretty steep when I can put in a well for 10 grand and not have a water bill. But if your guys' take is annexation and you're gonna take 20 houses that are all my neighbors and have been my neighbors and I'm gonna be the whole key to this, I don't feel like I should even have to pay for the water main extension, because you'll get that back in property taxes in a year. If you're not going to annex me for, even if you told me 10 years, you pay the 20 grand, we won't annex you, I'll pay the double rates on the water, and, you know, me and Ben, I think, would be willing to do that. But without a concrete and so many variables, I just know I need water. I've been talking to Spiegel for about 1.5 years, and now I'm 4 to 6 weeks from moving in. I'm doing carpet, doors, trim, and I got a house there with no water that I've spent a lot of money on. So I'm to the point, I got a guy that's telling me at Riverton he can put in a well within 2 weeks. And I know my house would have water then. I would prefer to have city water, and I did everything I can over the last 1.5 years to do that. I've talked to the neighbors, the residents, so to me it's either one or the other. If annexation is the way the city wants to go, I pay the $250 tap fee or whatever associated fees, and then you can annex all those houses. But if I'm footing the bill for that line, and then I'm gonna pay double water rates for the next 40 years I live in that house, I don't feel like I should. There's gotta be one way or the other. I can't pay the 20 grand and also pay city taxes. To me, that's just outrageous.
Rocky, I just got one question. Is there any way we can say we will not, and enter into an agreement where we will not annex the property for, say, 10 years? By changing?
Legally, you can't do that.
Okay.
You cannot. And we got the same discretion in what you're saying. Mere fact, if you have him annex it, you don't have to annex the other, what he said, 20 property owners. Annexation under your ordinance is always discretionary.
So what?
But you can't. But he's asking for an agreement for a period of time, and legally you can't do that.
So with that being said, we can't tell you that we're not gonna annex you in. So we could tell you tonight we're not going to, and agree to do that, but we can't tell you how long. So it's a crap. I'm assuming that.
Okay, well, then what is the city willing to offer? I mean,
we're not offering anything. You're asking for water, so that's basically, we're trying to get that to you in a way that the attorney says is legal. But you know, the city just doesn't hand out stuff because we can't afford it, just like everybody else. I mean, we can't just hand out water to anybody that asks because it's expensive to do.
right, and I'm willing to pay the cost. Or if you're annexing and you're gonna have taxes off of 20 houses, that's gonna offset that cost. Yeah.
I'm not particularly in favor of annexing, but that's just my personal opinion.
That's what it's saying, and if I may interject, that if we come to an agreement that we're not gonna annex you, we say you're gonna, you know, we agree that you pay the 10.5 and we are not gonna annex you, that is only good for now. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, another city council, whether we like it or not, if we're not here, they can annex you. So your annexation right now, if we agree, won't happen. Because I agree with Sean. I think we should have the double rate. But we can't promise it won't happen in the future. You know, some of these people.
Right, I just don't want a fast one being pulled in
We
6
can't
months from
promise
now.
in 6 months from now.
Well, here's your new tax bill, we're annexing you, and thanks for the 20 grand for this water main extension.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, you know, if you guys are sitting here for the next 4 years, 5 years, and you don't do it, and there's a whole new board, then that is what it is. I would rather have the city water, but, you know, without, you know, next year they redo my property tax evaluation, and then you guys wanna annex me, like, the unknowns there is what I don't think that's fair to me, I mean.
I know, you know, I wholly agree with you, but there's nothing we can do about it. I do believe anybody that has any kind of business sense at all will understand that the millions of dollars we have put into that water treatment facility, it is way better to have that double rate to help pay that payment than to go down to a single rate and have it somewhere else, because at least with the double water rates, it goes straight into the water fund for us to spend on that. So we can't wholly agree to not do it, but I think anybody that has any sense will look at that.
Right.
And say that that's just something we don't need to do right now.
Alderman George that?
Yeah. What I'm about to say isn't gonna help solve the problem, but the problem occurs when you buy a lot that doesn't have water. If you bought a lot in subdivision, whoever's putting in the subdivision puts in the infrastructure. So they put in the streets, they put in the sidewalks and curbs and gutters and the sewers and the water lines, and they incur that cost. Then when they divide that property up into however many lots they're gonna sell, and what the size of the lots, et cetera, then what they do is they say, okay, this is how much I've got as a contractor building the subdivision, this is how much money I've got invested in each lot, and then if they determine what the profit margin is, and then they sell you a lot, you don't have that problem. But that doesn't fix your problem tonight.
Right.
But the same token, what I'm thinking is that, you know, I know for a fact that if you're outside the city and you're paying double water rates and we bring you into the city, okay, the amount of revenue that the city gets because of the property taxes, et cetera, utility taxes and stuff like that, is more, we benefit more than the negative cost that comes to the city because of the double water rates or those single water rates now. In other words, the amount of money that we lose in revenue because you're paying double water rates is smaller than the total amount of money that we're gonna get because you come into the city. You're gonna pay more. But what I'm thinking is, maybe a solution, it's an idea, food for thought, is that if we knew, for example, how much more it's gonna cost you to come into the city, maybe we could offset that difference against the expense. And so over a period of time, you try to make it kind of a wash for X number of years. You see what I'm saying?
Right, that's what I'm saying, my property taxes would eventually pay for that water line.
We'll get more money, we'll get more money out of your pocket.
Yes, because I'm gonna be a resident there for, I mean, I didn't just build this house to move out of it,
Yeah.
you know.
And there's no question, if you've got city water as opposed to a well, your property's worth more. And the other
Right.
thing is that, you know, I don't know I've never built a well, and don't know anybody that has, but if you put in a well, I don't know what the guarantee is, how long that's gonna last. Do you incur that cost when you put in the well? And then if it goes dry or whatever, you just incurred that
Well, I
cost.
mean,
Do they have any
there's
guarantee?
warranties, you
Do they
know,
have a warranty to go with
on
it?
the motors and the pumps and on the, I mean, anything you buy is gonna have a warranty, pretty much.
Yeah, but.
But no, I would be incurring that
No, I'm talking
cost.
about the water. If you got the pump and everything else, but no water to pump, I don't know what the situation is there. Do you know?
Oh, there's plenty of water in
Is
there,
there?
yeah. I won't have a problem with the well. And I would never have a monthly payment. That's what I'm saying. I could go 12 grand and never have a monthly payment, or I could give the city however much money and pay water bills for the next 40, 50 years. And that's that. Like, I paid it 9 years, double rates, right across the road. It's just the people, when they ran the water main back there, didn't want water at the time. And now I'm doing everything I can to get water back there. I mean, no, I would rather not have a well, but I also didn't build a house not to be able to live in it, you know, so if I have to put in a well, then it is what it is. You know, I just need to know what the grounds are here and what the final cost is going to be to me. it was 10.5, and then I've heard 18, and then I've heard 25, like, I have to know what I'm paying and what the terms are.
The problem we have with that, we've experienced it for many, many years, is that, I guess the last one I remember is Dave out there at Burton Eddy, and it was some people on that road that, on the other side of Burton Eddy, and there was like 4 homeowners there that they wanted water, just like you do. And so what we did was the city incurred the cost to have an engineer tell us, you know, what the different things were as far as price is concerned to run a main out there. Okay, so we incurred expenses, and then the people found out how much it was going to cost, then they backed out. Well, then the city was biting the bullet on, you know, people are just, okay, come out and tell me how much it's going to cost. Well, it cost us, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to do that, and that's what you're asking for. But if you know,
right, and if I go, Shelby Electric told me what it costs, Ameren's told me what it costs. Everyone can give me a figure and tell me how to make it work.
we could too, but it would cost us, I don't know, Dave, how much would it cost us to tell them exactly how much it costs? We have to have what involved? They have to have an engineer, what else?
Well, up until today, I thought I had a pretty good, or up until here lately, I thought I had a pretty good idea of that, so. Yeah, at least a couple thousand, it's like 950 to do some of the engineering, and then the easements and title work gets picked up. We got another one we're working on that, we've been working on a hiccup in the title work for a month, so, couple thousand, just if you wanted to weigh in and start it off the start, just to get a firm idea of that stuff, and that's why we usually just say, here's the number, here's what it looks like, and we kind of go from there, so.
So, if I might add, and Rocky, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the options are now, the city incurs the cost of putting this water main in, and then we annex the properties in, where we recoup our costs from there, or Mr. Neighbours pays, just throw out a figure that he's thrown out, Mr. Neighbours and Mormon pays $15,000, and then we promise him we will not annex, which that promise is only good as long as this council feels like that. Meaning they can change their mind within a month, or at least till the next election, which is a year and a half away, when a new council and possibly a new mayor comes on, they can change their mind. And so I'm looking for direction if either one of those motions would fit tonight.
Mr. Mayor, let me just add there, without seeing the annexation agreements for these other properties, that would be the domino. Because if that 20 years is expired and it doesn't have the language we have now, then we're not going to be able to annex them in if the annexation agreements have expired. So we don't know that, okay? And no one's researched that at this point. So
I'm almost positive it's not over 20 years, but I know the house that was built there, and he's the one who petitioned down the water ran, and that house isn't 20 years old, so, but that's not on me.
okay.
And if it was 20 years, when the next person would come in, they would have to fill out an annexation agreement, and it would start all over again with that house and then the next one, so at some point it could domino. So,
Correct. Is that correct, Rocky? If the person who signed the original annexation agreement over 20 years, when he sells that to somebody else, they would have to sign an annexation agreement and they would be annexed.
I don't know how it was done before I was city attorney, but the annexation agreements that we put together now, those are recorded. I assume they've been recorded. That was my recommendation. And those are binding. It comes in your chain of title. So that 20 years would go all the way down no matter who, if you sold it the next year or 10 years from now. The new agreements also say that unless you renew it for an additional 20 years at the expiration of the first 20, water can be shut off. That's where it gives the city, you know, almost a perpetual right to make those decisions. I don't know, you know, for years, way back when, a lot of these annexation agreements were never recorded, and they didn't have that kind of magic language in it, so I don't know what exists out there.
And the other thing, last from Ben was, if the annexation is going to occur, that they were willing to agree to the original 10-5, whatever it was. That was it. Anything above that, he wasn't. Last communication I had from him was that that's what he would agree to. But since the annexation was in play, he wouldn't agree to anything higher than that.
Okay, so you're saying if the annexation were to occur, Ben and Craig, and you can answer for yourself, would be happy to pay the 10-5 and then both be annexed into the city?
That's what last communication I had from Ben. He wasn't able to bear. He had some oral surgery. So.
I mean, I personally don't think if the annexation that I should have to even pay that much. I know that's what we originally agreed to, but the annexation wasn't what was on the table. And Ben went and had his taxes estimated, and he's estimating they're going to be about $3,000 more a year, and that's probably where mine's going to come in at. And that, you know, that's $6,000, 3 years. 3 years that pays for itself, and then you got the next forever to profit off of that. And if you annex other houses, it's just going to go up even more. You know.
Actually, the city tax rate on the Mormon property, my office actually computed that, and it was like about, for the city portion, it was going to be like $2,282.80 on Mormon's property.
Okay.
Based upon last
If you
year's
say
tax
2,000, that's 4,000 a year for the next year. It's going to pay for itself in $4,000. And then the other thing is, my road's going to get plowed? Am I going to have street lights? Am I going to have any other city amenities besides this water line? You know, because I'm paying that money, and I should, if I'm going to be a city resident, I should have the same utilities as somebody else. I know it would never get sewer out there or whatever, but there's other things that come into being annexed if I'm going to be a city resident that should be part of this. You know, I'm willing to pay, I'm willing to work with you, I'm willing to do whatever, but I just think there's, you know, or what if we do it, we pay the bill and we're not annexed, but you guys write up some type of agreement where we would be reimbursed if we are annexed. You know.
Is that possible, Rocky?
Thinking about that, I mean, it really attacks the integrity of your ordinance. It really does. Because you're binding a future council to say, hey, if exercise the discretion is going to be a benefit to do that. But it's an interesting thought. So if I'm hearing him, that he'll pay the full $25,000, and then we have a graduated rebate if in the future it gets annexed in. Is that what he's suggesting? I didn't hear all his comments.
Well, whatever the figure is, if it's $20,000 or whatever, if
$25,000 for the actual cost to put it in is a good, fair estimate.
Well, I've had different views here, but
well, that's the same number we came up with when you and I and the mayor.
yeah, I know you were writing stuff down, but there was a lot of variables in there.
And getting the estimate from the engineer, from the title insurance company. So those are pretty good numbers. Absent what it would cost to pay any mortgage companies to get a subordination agreement.
Alderman Bryant?
I'm not fully sure I understand all these words flying around here, but I think I got a good idea. So it's $25,000 to put water on their street, right?
Right.
So he's saying, I'll pay $10,000. Mormon's saying, oh, I'll pay $10,000. So that's leaving the city with a $5,000 bill to give them water?
No, I think they agreed to split the 10-5 amongst them. But
The original quote was 10.5, and then when I met with him, and that was been for the last year almost. When I met the other day with the attorney and Mayor Berry, he started adding figures and estimated it closer to 25 from his 10.5.
and then I came up with 18.
Yeah, and he said he would try doing it for 18 and split the difference. And that's where I'm at. If Ben pays 9 and I pay 9 to get to that 18, or if it's 10 and 10, I'm asking that we don't get annexed. If I know I get the legal terms, and that's just all how an ordinance is wrote. It can be rewrote. You know, there's other things there, but either I pay, or if we're annexing, and your guys' plan is to annex the next 20 properties, because I know all the water situation out there. I've lived out there. I've been told how the agreements work and how they were wrote up. And you're going to take 20 other houses, and the property taxes in 1 year are going to pay for that $20,000 water main extension. So I don't see why I would be required to pay. Me and Ben come up with $20,000, and then the city takes those taxes, and then they take all these other people, and the city wins and wins. Like,
I agree with that.
It should be one or the other. Either I'll pay for the water line, and you won't annex me, or the city pays for the water line. I'll pay my tap fees, whatever's there, and then give me city taxes. That's all I'm asking for. One or the other.
What's the negative about annexing? You said you weren't for it.
Pardon? No, the negative that I hear, and Tom Girdle is if we annex these 20 properties out there, we'll lose the income that the water department gets for paying the double the water rate. And we're trying to use that money in order to pay for the new water plant. But it will be, if we annex the properties, the city will benefit because we will get more tax money for the city. But like Mr. Neighbours is saying, he doesn't care if we're annexed, but you know, is he gonna get,
Right.
is our street department gonna go out there and plow his road? Are we gonna put sidewalks out there in the future, something like that?
Which is all gonna cost us more.
Which is all gonna cost us more money. So, I mean,
I liked the idea of an agreement like, you know, that if we were, then give him free water for a year.
You know, the water department loses on every scenario. See, what's gonna happen is Dave and his guy, even if the city decides to put that water main in ourselves and we're gonna pay for it, it's gonna come out of Dave's budget.
Right.
So he's gonna lose that money. If we decide to let them pay for the water main and we're gonna annex in, all the money that we get for the annexation, he's still putting the water main in.
Right.
All the money we're gonna, for annexation is not gonna go back to the water department,
Right.
so he loses the second time around. So it's a loser for the water
But
department.
he won't lose if they pay to put the water main in.
And if they
we
outside
get all
the
these
city.
other customers and they get all those other customers. Alderman Olive?
And it really has nothing to do with the water main other than the fact of annexation and non-annexation. To me, if we annex something into the city, then we incur a lot more cost involved to maintain that new portion that we just brought on. And you weigh that against what you bring in real estate taxes. Do we win, or are we actually, it's gonna take more manpower, more vehicles, more maintenance, more this, more that, more of everything to maintain more roads than what we presently have. I don't see the win. I
I
think
have a suggestion, Mayor.
Okay.
I have a suggestion here. If they pay the full, for example, just one of the things I was doing some math here. If they pay the full $25,000, they split it, and then we can write probably an annexation agreement that if another council annexes to them within the first 6 years, they get rebated their taxes for the first year. If they come back, they would get rebated their taxes for 5 more years. If they come back and annex them 2 years later, then they get 4 years of rebates. In other words, if it's $4,000 in real estate taxes over a 6-year period, it's going to be around $24,000, $25,000. Okay, so you could say they pay it all. We do an annexation agreement. If this council or another council annexes in with that 6-year period, whatever's left of that 6-year period, that's the rebate they get. So they're basically getting their money back. That might work.
So that actually makes it a wash.
Mr.
Yes.
Neighbors?
Yeah, I like that.
Mr. Neighbors, how do you feel about that?
Well, is that gonna be the figure, 25, or is it 20? I mean, you originally mentioned 18, I know he's saying 25.
I think we
The
believe,
cost
His
is
figure,
25,
I mean-
is what they wanna
I
do.
think we believe 25 is a fair figure that through the expenses. Now, Dave did throw out 10.5, and so I.
That's what, I mean, that's
No,
2.5
I
times.
understand exactly where you're coming from.
I mean, or if it's 20 grand, I'll write a $10,000 check, and if Ben's on board, I can't speak for somebody who's not here.
Right.
So that's kind of another dilemma. I can't make an arrangement.
And it would just be whatever it came in at, right? I mean, Dave says 10, Rocky says 25. If it comes in at 18, then it'll be 18.
No, but what they're saying, I honestly believe it's gonna come in about 25 because of all the engineering and the attorney fees and all the easements and stuff. Dave has done this way before and given a fair figure of what his mind was. So Mr. Neighbors is agreeing with the 10.5 at first. I threw out the 18 sort of trying to compromise. And even though, if we do the 7,000, we're gonna get double water rates for a while, at least, until maybe another 6 years at least. And again, we have the propensity to get new water customers that are going to use that. And so I would say make the figure 18. If Craig, you know, Craig's, and maybe Ben will go along with it, I don't know either. I think Ben was more or less going along with the 6,000 or the 5,500, whatever. So if Craig says, I'll pay 10 or 11 or 12, and Ben pays 6 or something like that, I think that would be fair for everyone. Mr. Bud?
Well, as you're going down through there with the new main, we're gonna get tap fees. If any of those others tap on it, we're gonna get tapping fees, correct?
Correct.
So we're gonna gain some money there. What's a tapping fee now today?
It's $5 per front foot. There's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other homes between where we did start and before we got to their property. 9 and actually I think 8 homes and 2 lots, I think, Ryan's lot. So the potential for picking up 10 more customers just getting to where their homes would be tapped.
And that would generate what, approximate?
Well, it'd be, I mean, it's $5 front foot, so you got a 100-foot $500 tapping fee, plus you'd have those customers go along. Now, some of them won't, some of them will. And what we've typically seen, you have people that don't want to be part of it, don't want to annex, don't want to sign the annexation agreement. And then somebody else moves in and that's not as big a concern and their well goes bad and okay, now we tap on. So it tends to fill in as you go along.
Which there were 2 other residents that were interested that I've spoken to, and there was a female that was definitely interested that lives on the other side of Bend, but she would then be contiguous, and she said no to the annexation. So there might be other customers willing to get on here, but it depends on what the terms of the agreement are going to be.
Well, the only thing of it is if we do get some to tap on, we are gonna generate some fees there. Potentially could be, with those numbers, maybe $10,000 there.
Tap-ons are what if, so you don't know if they're gonna.
I understand that.
Well, I mean, you gotta give them something concrete, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that would be money that we would generate if that were to happen. So that would bring down some of the cost.
You know, the biggest problem we have with this scenario is, and I hate to keep saying this, and you guys are probably gonna kill me, but this doesn't go through committee once again. Everybody's got all these questions. He wants to know how many customers are on that road on this water main. We don't have that number. We don't know what the tapping fees is. They don't have $5 fee, but they don't know how many feet there is because they had the opportunity to go out there. We don't know what the engineering fees are. We don't know how many customers want water. We don't know how many customers don't want water. We don't know how many customers want to be annexed. We don't know how many customers don't want to be annexed. And the reason we don't have that is because we didn't take the time to take this through committee and then come to the council and get all that information up front. So we'd have the answers to the questions before they're asked.
Well, the issue is, now it's time sensitive. Mr. Neighbours has talked to Dave a year and a half ago. And I know Dave has been very busy with the new water plant. He came to me a couple weeks ago and said, hey, and Dave and I have spoke plenty of times about this. And so now the issue is, that, you know, do we want more water customers? Do we want possibly annexation? And so I'm just throwing out that figure, $18,000. We give him a 6-year agreement that if he does get annexed in, then we rebate the annexation taxes, the extra taxes for 6 years.
Doing 2,000 there, because 6 years it should be more like about 4 years. 4.5 years, 4 years, because we're only talking about 4,000 extra revenue for the city, so it'd be a 4-year agreement to rebate back if they annex in, if you do the math.
Okay, so 4 year. Cool. So.
I don't have a problem making that motion.
Motion.
We've gotta come to a conclusion here, what we're gonna do with this. Time sensitive for him. And we don't need somebody else coming in there and trying to take the customers.
Right. Motion by Alderman Bud.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bryant.
What's the motion?
What's the motion?
The motion,
The motion is what you have on the second thing on your agenda to direct me to prepare blah, 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 those documents.
So we don't.
And you know, and as I understand, you're talking about an $18,000 cost with a annexation agreement of a 4-year term. About if there's annexation, it'll be prorated rebate of the city portion of those taxes, and then I'll prepare the documents if that's the motion, and then Mr. Neighbor could decide if Mr. Mormon's gonna join or not. I have to include them on that stuff too, if he's gonna do it.
I'm good with those terms. If I can get Ben and maybe if Susan Creek, it just, I'm willing to do that. If you annex me in the next year or whatever, then I start recouping those costs. I just didn't want an empty bargain here where I pay 20 grand and then I'm paying city taxes 6 months from now.
So we're gonna give you a 4-year period if you annex.
Yes,
you
and
get-
then,
you'll
yeah.
get your taxes rebated.
The problem is that if for some reason you get anybody else to go into the installation costs, I'm not saying you will, but if you talk to anybody and say the annexation's off the table from the city, and they say they will get into the annexation, or get into the installation cost of that main, that means your portion will go down. So.
I understand the motion is only for two people, Mormon and
Okay.
Neighbors.
Yeah, at this time, we're the only ones that are concrete. If someone else wants to join in, or they can pay the city tap fees, or whatever the costs are. That was the other thing, is me and Ben wanted reimbursed if we ran this line and paid 20 grand, and then 6 residents next summer paid him tap fees. Like, we did all that cost up front, but if we're going to get, if there's gonna be some give and take where we can be reimbursed here or something, then I don't know that that's as big a deal, but I just, nobody wanted to bear the upfront cost, but once that water's there and their well pump ain't working next summer, I could see them saying, nah, the city water's right there, my neighbors ran it, now I can get on for $1,000 or, you know, there's a lot of variables there, but as long as I know I'm not gonna be paying city taxes, you know, I'm willing to make this agreement with the 18 grand or whatever, over the 4 years. I can't control what anyone else decides to do now or 6 months from now, but.
When's the next city council meeting?
The 4th, next Monday.
Okay, could we have Rocky in the meantime, put this in writing?
He's going to draw the ordinance.
Okay, rather than act on it tonight, could we,
No,
a delay till next Monday? If we
If
had-
that's your motion is directing me to do it, I'll have something there for you to look at and vote on next Monday.
So we have to make a motion to get him to do everything.
Yeah, we're
So we
making a
can
motion
look
to
at
get him
it
to
Monday.
draw it up.
Well, we can
Right,
draw
and
it
are
out,
you-
but we don't have to vote on it.
No, we're just voting on
We-
allowing him to do it.
Yeah, that's,
So you're just voting to prepare the documents for your look-see next Monday.
Are you gonna move forward with the title work and easements, or
Well,
is that
so
all?
Title work takes forever and can be slow, so if you're gonna vote yes on this, either plan on voting yes on that now or vote no now.
Yeah.
Because if you vote yes on this and you're trying to vote no, because I'm gonna go ahead and start on the, because I halted the
okay,
title work.
Dave, the only thing is I've heard so many things said tonight, I don't know what I'd be voting on. So I wanna know what I'm voting on, I wanna know what the agreement is, I'd like to see it in front of me that I could read it.
This whole
I
thing's
mean, I'm just
solid.
hearing all this stuff and would you feel more comfortable if you could see in writing what we're doing?
Well, not if it's the
But if it's what?
18 grand and the 4-year rebate, if anyone else jumps on.
Yeah.
Is that as simple as that? Is that
No, we're
what-
not, no, I'm not, that's not something that they were talking about, because that adds it, that gets more complicated. I think the proposal on the table was that you pay the 18,000, and if the city council decides to annex you in within the next 4 years, the sales taxes will be, the city portion of real estate taxes will be rebated proportionally to that year in which that's exercised. That's what I heard the motion be. We don't want it, I don't think that, and talking to David before, they did that once with Bernetti, it was a complete mess, trying to keep track of it.
Yeah, I agree with Sean. If this had happened in the committee, and I understand the need for him to have a decision, but, I'm just struggling with everything we've said, now the attorney's saying it's a little bit more complicated than that. I wanna see it in front of me before I'm gonna vote on it, so if you wanna direct vote, I don't care what you tell the
Well, we're
attorney to
gonna
do.
direct the attorney to
Okay.
draw this up, but like you said, we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time. David would like to start getting this work, so I guess we'll vote on it. And since there was a motion by Alderman Bud and second by Alderman Bryant, roll call.
What's the motion? I wanna know what the
To
motion
direct
is.
the city
Just to
attorney.
direct the city attorney to prepare the ordinance.
Motion is to direct the city attorney to prepare the necessary ordinances, annexation petitions and documents, easements, subordination, and or consent agreements, and such other instruments and documents as the city attorney may determine concerning the aforesaid city water main extension program to essentially provide that the applicant, either it would be Craig Neighbours and or Ben Norman and their respective spouses, to pay a total of $18,000 future within the next 4 years after the project is completed, decide to annex in either of those two properties, those particular properties would be rebated the city portion of the real estate taxes based upon the year in which they came in. So, 25% or 75% they get back if you guys come after the first year, 50% if you come in the second year, third, fourth. That's what I understand the motion is.
That's the motion. Okay, roll call.
Sean Bertle,
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Pardon? Did you say yes?
Yes.
Sorry. Lee Landzadi,
Yes.
Jim Olive,
Yes.
Chris Teddy,
Yes.
Megan Bryant,
Yes.
Larry Bud.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you. May I be excused, gentlemen?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, bye-bye.
Just another
The
reason.
fourth on the agenda, motion to approve the purchase of a heat exchanger for the train unit located at the fire station from Yard Heating and Cooling at a cost of $2,377.80. Motion Alderman Stoltetti, second Alderman Olive, comment Alderman Stoltetti.
Just to make everyone aware, he wasn't at the street sewer meeting, but this is the heat exchanger that runs the train, that runs track, and when it's run, it's pumping through into the trainer, which is time sensitive, we need to get it fixed. So just everybody knows that.
Roll call.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryant.
Yes.
Larry Bud.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. First subparagraph G of 5 ILCS 120/2.06. This portion of the city council meeting is reserved for any person wishing to address the council on any relevant subject matters concerning the city. The Illinois Open Meeting Act 5 ILCS 120/1C mandates no action shall be taken on subject matters not listed on the agenda, but the council may direct staff to address the topic or refer the subject matter to a future council and/or committee meeting. If anyone wishes to address the council, please provide your name and address, limit your comments or presentation to 3 minutes, and avoid repetitious comments. Anyone out there would like to speak?
Just a reminder,
Motion, what?
just a reminder, I give you copies of all the contracts, and it goes in by Wednesday if you've got anything, so we can be looking over those. Because next Monday, after city council's regular city council, if the mayor will put on, it's going to be closed. We'll go into closed to discuss those, so we've got an idea of how we can get negotiations started. All 3 unions are ready to go.
And if you
When do you
could,
wanna have those, Larry?
By Wednesday, so we got them.
This Wednesday?
Yes. Monday night, we're gonna go over them.
and if you could, mention the typos that are in some of them so we get them changed. If you wanna write the typos down and hand me in any requests.
I'm just telling you that we need it, because the unions are ready to start negotiating.
So if you would mention the typos so we can get them
That's a
changed
switch.
also. And,
Usually they're dragging ball and chain, seems like.
and so, yeah, if you could.
Don't repeat that.
If you give me something written and mention the typos, then, I will put them in order of what we wanna go after and things like that, so I expect that Wednesday's fine, if not, Thursday's fine also.
But we gotta get them so we can
Right,
start
we gotta
working
get
on
them
it.
so we can look at them. So,
I'll get right on that tomorrow.
other than that, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Alderman Olive, second by Alderman Bryant, all in favor?
Aye.